Exploring Growth podcast. What I'm doing is I'm running a little series here where I'm bringing back old guests that have been on, months before, and we talked about different topics in the past, and saying, where are they now? What are you doing now? And Dan Sanchez, if you don't know him, the all too popular marketer here, and now more recently AI marketer on LinkedIn, afforded the great honor of having him back on the podcast, and now you're live on LinkedIn to discuss none other than AI, because what else do we have to talk about these days, ladies and gentlemen? It is controlled and taken over a lot of our lives, and probably more so than we would like it to. So, what I want to do with this time is jump into this topic of local AI. Right? I'm not gonna. I don't want to, say too much, but essentially, it's I think where I'm coming at it from first is like privacy aspect, but also maybe there's some better other benefits. But I saw somewhere that you can download ChatGPT and run it on your computer, and I thought, okay, that's interesting. Now we're making the next stride to this being more independent, to where I can utilize this on my own terms, kind of thing, which is cool. So I don't have to build my own thing. So I got so interested in that. I was like, all right, well, I know the guy to ask. So Dan, when you want to come back on the podcast and talk about it. So welcome back, Dan.
It's good to be back, Lee. Thanks for having me. So let's talk about it. This has been out for a while, but it only became like something people were even looking into, like I was, when ChatGPT finally released something called an open weight model. It's a lot like, it's not exactly open source. It's a little bit different, but it's essentially kind of like WordPress. Like if you've worked with WordPress, you don't have to go to WordPress.com and use their hosting services and have WordPress available to use to publish a blog or a website. No, like if you worked with WordPress, you can go to WordPress.org, download the software, and then do with it whatever you want.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of the same thing ChatGPT now allows for. It's not ChatGPT 5. It's specifically a very specific version of it in and of itself that they've released to the whole world. Mm-hmm. They actually released it just the week before, or actually a few days before they released ChatGPT 5. And it was so good that people were like, oh my gosh, this is better than what is currently live at ChatGPT. And everybody was like, they must be releasing 5 soon. And they did, because it was, of course, better than what they just like put out there for people to use as much as they wanted and power their own apps. But now there's this whole model that's out there like WordPress, free and available for you to use as much as you want, however you want to use it.
That's amazing.
So it kind of gives us some options now. We're no longer tied to just tapping into logging into chatgpt.com or going through the API and getting billed every time we use the model, right? We now have this third option in order to actually run AI.
Yeah, I'm seeing that it's called self-hosting. Local deployment, and it's the GPT OSS 120B and OSS 20B. That's under an Apache 2.0 license. Okay, that's really cool. I mean, it's honestly really amazing that we've come so far so fast with general population AI use, and now we're able to use it like WordPress. That's a great analogy.
So that's what it is. Let's talk about like why this is even relevant. Why do businesses care that you can have this third option now? And then we'll go into it a little bit more of like how it's different from chatgpt.com, how it's useful, and how to actually get it installed. I won't get into the fine nitty-gritty details of how to install it, but I'll point you in the right direction. But let's just talk about the why. So now that we have this thing available, we can essentially run it on our computer or on our own private server, right? And the server is just a computer, set up in a closet somewhere that multiple people have access to, right? And I mean, it's a little bit more complicated than that. It's like multiple servers, it's computers with redundancies and lots of hard drives and bigger storage spaces. And it's more than that. I'm simplifying it. But if you're a company and you already have a server rack, and a lot of companies do, it's amazing how many companies are running this. I went into the movie theater just a few weeks ago, and this particular movie theater had a glass wall where you could see their servers. And I'm like, oh,
Interesting.
that makes sense. They've automated the whole movie theater, and all the movies are stored on these huge server racks. And they had this room lit up with like blue lights and stuff. It looked high tech. It looked like something from a tech company. But I'm like, dang, even my local AMC has this big server room full of servers running programs and stuff. It's not just. It makes sense. It's all automated these days to save costs, and it's not running it off a Dell computer. It's running it off a computer hosted on a server.
They're
So
just
a lot of
inviting
companies
all the
have servers.
local hacker nerds to come and try to hack it, you know. You come to watch
You
your latest
want to
Star
hack your
Wars or
local
whatever.
AMC and then deal with all the legal repercussions from big companies like Disney, sure.
Yeah.
um, but a lot of companies have servers, and you can even get your own little server for a couple $1,000. And videographers do it all the time, just to have backups for their video hosting, right? Not uncommon. And a lot of us will have powerful enough laptops to be able to run it itself. I will say to do this, you do need something a little bit more powerful, and I'll get into the details. But why would you want this? You want this because if you're entering it into ChatGPT, everything you ever enter into ChatGPT through the API or through chatgpt.com is stored somewhere on a server. And for a lot of companies, that just doesn't pass muster. They have client details. They have email addresses. They have maybe social security numbers. They have maybe if you're in health, you got health information. You can't be sending that up to an unsecured server, a
Yeah.
server that doesn't pass, the laws for privacy for health, right? You might have other concerns. You might fear that someday the government's going to take over, and you don't want them to be able to find all your data, whatever it might be. Like things change. Right now, ChatGPT has to keep a record legally of every conversation you have with it. Every conversation, even the ones in the temporary chat window, they have to keep illegal. They don't really like that but the law is currently making them based on a lawsuit they have. So that happens. ChatGPT recently decided to make all the, where you could share a conversation with a coworker or a friend or something. So you made it live, but nobody had access to the link unless they knew what the URL was, which is always a long string, right? Made it impossible to find. But then one day they decided to make all those pages indexed by Google, which means if you were somewhat famous or somebody had a vendetta against you, they could do a Boolean search for site, ChatGPT, search for so and so's name, and then just start throwing in keywords to see if they can unearth any of these archived conversations. And Google's really good at finding that kind of stuff, and finding the dirt on people. The problem is all those conversations, even though ChatGPT reverse coursed and downed them all, are now stuck in archive.org, which archives the internet automatically. That's problematic. And there's things like that are happening and will continue to happen because this is a new space. This is a new frontier. There's not new protocols for this. So what do? Well, you keep the conversations off ChatGPT servers and you keep them on yours, on your computer, on your server. That makes it private. That makes it safe. That makes it easy for you to comply by your company standards, by your own personal standards, or maybe to just stay within your own limits. Maybe you want to do something where you don't want it on someone's server because it's private. You're having a personal conversation of some kind. Well, now you can have it on your computer without it, without the possibility of it entering the internet. And that's a big deal. So that keeps things safe. And there might be trade secrets you're talking about, again, customer data, financial data, all kinds of data that you just don't want there. The other big reason why you might want to have this is you don't want to pay the monthly subscription anymore. If you don't want to pay the $20 a month for ChatGPT, you can download this for free, run it on your computer, and then use it for whatever you want. Or maybe there's limitations on ChatGPT that you possibly couldn't do, but you want to convert a whole library's worth of books or this huge database you have, and you're like, oh, that's going to be expensive because you already know they have limitations on this, but you want it to go farther. You want to be able to paste in more information. You want it to put out more information. You want to automate it. You want to do something fancy with it that ChatGPT or the API doesn't let you do. Bam. Now you can do it yourself. Kind of like web hosting used to be a problem, and WordPress set you free to be able to do whatever you want with your website, which is why WordPress is so widely used by like 40% of the net, right? Because you could turn WordPress into anything. And now you can kind of do that with ChatGPT's, some of their best models. The last reason is that you don't need the internet to use it. If the internet's down and your servers are still up, you can still run it from your server. If it's on your computer, then you could just run it from your computer anytime, whether you're running like you're on an airplane or want to stay dark and don't connect to the internet. You can run it anytime, anywhere from just your computer. Even a laptop is
Mhm.
possible.
But in
So
that
those are some of
instance,
the
you'll be very, very limited in terms of how you can use it. I mean, in terms of the data that you can
yeah, because you
well,
can't feed it data from the web. It can't go search things for you or
right.
whatever. So yeah, you're limited in that way. But still, it's really nice to have that option. That's why I installed it on my computer. Now my computer is actually not powerful enough. So, like you really basic requirements for a computer is you need to have a computer that's powerful enough to have like 32 gigs of RAM.
Mhm.
Okay, if especially for an Apple, it's actually configured. Apple runs these really well, but you do have to have at least 32 gigs of RAM, which for a MacBook Pro to have 32 gigs of RAM is about a $2,500 laptop. Probably less if you're just getting an iMac with 32 gigs of RAM, but it's around that cost range. That puts it out of scope for most people right now. I have a MacBook 3, uh, what is this? M3 Pro chip on this, and I have 18 gigs of RAM. I'm like just under what's required, but I'm close. Close enough that I can install it and test it, but not close enough that it was any good or use. But I'm still recommending it to people all over the place who have hurdles and don't want, then the company doesn't want them to be able to use their data on public servers, or at
Mhm.
least ChatGPT servers or Google servers or Microsoft servers or all that stuff. They want to be able to run it more privately. I'm like, this is the option. Like buy like one, you could buy one Mac Mini and
Mhm.
just soup up the get a slightly more powerful processor and just get a lot of gigs of RAM in it, and then bam, you have a little computer that can be your own private ChatGPT application.
I love it. Put a face on it, and chat to it, you know, talk to it every day.
Now, these models are really powerful, but there's one massive caveat to learning to using it that I found out.
Okay.
Um, they do not have the massive amount of knowledge that your typical models have. You know how we talk about like how AI is like a genius intern because it knows everything. These ones do not know as much. So they will hallucinate a lot more.
Okay.
They're really powerful. It's almost like a genius that has amnesia. They can't remember all the stuff, but they're really good at processing information.
Mhm.
That's these models. If
Hmm.
they did know everything, it would be it would be too a file size just too big for your computer to handle. Which is why it's still worth paying for that $20 a month plus subscription, because that model knows a lot about a lot. You could ask it about some obscure movie that got published back in the 80s and it can tell you the plot of it. These models will not be able to do that. They don't have all the data installed on them. Now, there's two different models for ChatGPT, but even ChatGPT is not the only one you could do this with. Facebook is like famously been putting out a open weight model for years now, and it's pretty good. ChatGPT is currently is better, so that's the one most people are now using. Um, you know what? Forgot to talk about like one extra use case for this, and that's if you're doing like custom development or something. Right now, any application you build has to run through the API. But what if you don't want it to run through the API? What if you just want it to stay on your server? Well, now you can use this as part of your application if you're building a custom application. I will say that the amount of like the amount of electricity and the amount of processing power it takes makes the API look really good, because you find out how much it costs to run servers like that. You're like, like it actually is often cheaper to work through the API because they have more optimized server systems than what you can probably buy on Amazon Cloud or whatever. But eventually, people will start setting up like optimized hosting for these kinds of things, and the cost will drop. Um, Kind of like WordPress. Remember when WordPress, you had to install it on like HostGator, and it was like just
Mhm.
some cPanel thing and it was a mess. And now then they came up with like Flywheel and WP Engine, and now like every web hosting provider has like dedicated WordPress hosts, right? And it's all optimized for WordPress. That will eventually happen. You can host your own LLM there. Um, but again, these models can only remember so much. But it's ChatGPT is very powerful, even good strong reasoning capabilities. It even lets you see all the reasoning happening in real time. The thing I love about it is that it's useful for automated tasks that it needs to make decisions and only needs a limited amount of context to make the decision. This is going to be helpful. And I think this will be a bigger deal for businesses that want to run automations for their own internal stuff,
Yeah.
but don't want it to go to the server just because it's easier to maintain it on their own internal. internal servers and have all these automated processes happening for accounting, happening for if you're a college, happening admissions, processing things when it needs to get processed. You don't have to worry about the SaaS being down or the internet being down. It's just running through the servers like clockwork, and your IT manages it. It just becomes part of the process. This is going to be a really powerful option for a lot of people. And people are only just now starting to look into this. Very few companies are utilizing it, but it's become pretty easy. Like the process of getting this installed in your computer is possible for anybody to run.
Hmm.
If you just Google a step-by-step process to install a program like Olama, which is like a third-party application, it's the one that ChatGPT specifically recommends.
Hmm.
It's not as well optimized, but you can install Olama and then be like, oh, and here's ChatGPT. Bam, it runs. Again, you have to have a powerful enough computer to be able to do that. And then the other most popular one that I see more of the techie people using is called LM Studio, where you can run multiple models out of that sucker.
Okay.
But it's a popular choice. And then LM Studio is essentially the chat interface that you're used to working with, and then it just loads in ChatGPT to be able to run in their little chat interface that has all the different little buttons and things for you to host. It's specialized in being able to run language models in it. So those are the two different paths. Olama is simpler and easier to install, but LM Studio is more powerful, more efficient, and gives you more options, but is a little bit more complex to install. There's YouTube videos on how to use both of them and how to get any of them working.
Have you seen any use cases of companies using a local ChatGPT? And I'm curious, like maybe how you've been using it or how you've seen it being used, because I mean, this is it's very timely. Meaning, I'm trying to think of the right word. Like people are using ChatGPT. Okay, there's a paid version. They're using that, and a lot of people are on to that. But now, as it goes with adoption, you're kind of stuck because now you have to learn the next phase of things. And I read an article earlier today talking about how things in AI have started to slow down for the time being, giving users a chance to kind of catch up to all this rapid growth and innovation, which is good because I think everybody's tongue's hanging out there to see something new every single day, right? So like for businesses out there, small to mid-sized businesses that are trying to utilize this internally. I think the idea of a Mac Mini or something practical like that, that's a separate computer that can operate on your company's data is great. But what have you seen? How are companies using it?
Companies are usually using it for the things that they don't want. So it's the processing of customer data, doing analysis on financial records, just trying to find insights and reports and stuff like that are the most common use cases. They got data and they want to know about it. So they're using AI in a closed environment in order to scan it, access it, run regular reports on it, and then email those reports to the right people is probably the most common use case I've seen.
Okay.
Really powerful way to use it.
Yeah.
Personally, I can't wait to have my own. They do. Everyone's heard of NVIDIA now. The guys who make all the chips that all these processors run AI on. You can actually buy a little mini NVIDIA like motherboard with the chip implanted on it for just a few $100 and run these things on it. I plan to get one soon. It's a little bit more technical, so I'm like, I'll
Yeah. You
probably
got.
have to invite an IT friend to help me
Yeah.
install it
Yeah.
and get it set up. But personally, I would like to have it just to run all my health records through. Like I'm tracking sleep, I'm tracking, weight, I'm tracking nutrition and workouts and all that kind of stuff. I'd love to be able to run it through that data, but not actually upload all that to ChatGPT
Yeah. That's interesting.
personally.
Well, you kind of bring up an interesting point there that we're, that makes me think of Whoop, or, there's lots of devices out there that do that. And so these companies that are currently doing that for you, um, you're sort of getting the power put in your hands to not only control your data from a privacy standpoint, which is huge. That's, I think that we've had a lot of, national conversations about that. But, but also like control it uh, from like a use standpoint. Like, what do you actually want to do with it and have more control over where you're going with it? So, yeah, I like that. I hadn't thought about that angle of it. I mean, I thought about the privacy side, but not just the autonomy take your world and sort of privatize it.
There's a lot of different open, like NVIDIA specifically puts out its own model. So like before people were using ChatGPT's open model or Facebook's or Meta's one, a lot of people were using NVIDIA's. They have their own models that they work on, which is crazy. Nobody knows about NVIDIA has their own like language models, but they do. And they have a whole bunch of different things where you can transcribe audio, video, and then run it through the models. So, like, I have a friend that, not a friend, a coworker that works with me at Social Media Examiner, their head of IT over there, has his own NVIDIA little computer behind him. And he gets into it through his laptop and then like uploads his kids' soccer games, and it does all the AI analysis of which kid did what and when, which is normal software you can go and buy, but it costs thousands of dollars a year in order to do. If you've ever been into kids soccer, there's all these cameras and AI detectors and blah blah blah. If you've ever been to a kids soccer field in a tournament, you know they're all these big cameras in the sky watching them. But they're expensive, and he just built his own, and it's just every time he uploads a game, it's just like runs through it, processes it, and then gives them the report, for his team to go over. I'm like, that's cool.
That
But
is
imagine
cool.
if you're a videographer, and every time you come back from a shoot, you kind of have something set up, so where every time you just drop everything into this folder on your computer, AI takes over, transcribes it, comes up with a report, starts organizing it into the right folders with transcriptions, edit possible shots, how to run it together, starts getting a preliminary script for you just based on what is already in your camera. Wouldn't that be nice? That's the kind of stuff we'll be doing soon. And
Yeah.
it'll be dependent on what you usually do. What's your workflow?
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I'm the kind of guy who likes to keep everything in the cloud. So there's a bunch of different things that I'm just going to run through ChatGPT, but I think about how to use these things all the time, even on my laptop, and I would love to have a little AI running things overnight for me, so I don't have to keep feeding it. I could just drop it in the folder, and it knows like, oh, go file by file and do these processes.
Yeah.
That'll be the kind of stuff that's available soon for all of us. It's available now, but right now it takes a few extra steps in order to automate it.
Yeah. The use case for me that I'm really interested about is um, business development, and I'm thinking about it in terms of how to utilize the data that's in a CRM, and in order to build deeper and actual better relationships with people, not just touch points and emails and the tech side of it, but looking for data points, signals, points that you can pull out that are human, and say, anything from as simple as a birthday that you would remember, whereas you might not have before, to as more complex as this person works at this company, but there's other people that work there too that are connected to, 3 different layers in your LinkedIn network. But you also have to have these conversations that are notated with these people. And when you look at all of this sort of web of, if you could do that as a human, and you would have serendipity in hey, I know this person, this is this person. If you could have that happen with this model, and that be sort of running and learning and checking on a daily basis, I think that would be probably weird at a certain level, that you'd be like, how'd you put that together? Right. But it would be really cool too, because you could actually pursue people more intentionally if the final answer or the final action was taken by a human. I don't know. I think that could be really interesting.
Yeah, there's tons of stuff like that. You can actually do that kind of stuff already, but it'll be easier to set up right now. Like you could, like I use high level, and I could make it so that I come up with you'd have to do this outside of high level right now, not soon. Soon they'll be able to do this within high level, but right now I'd have to run it through NAN and set up a sequence that runs through the process. I'm like, here's the criteria of people to look for, or I just say like everybody with this tag, just as soon as they get this tag, run it through the process, and maybe I have that tag being applied to people systematically within high level.
Yes.
As
Yeah.
soon as I get the tag, it triggers something. It goes to NAN. It looks up all the things that I need to look up. Goes and scrapes the internet for that contact and goes and looks for anything about them that I need to know. Um, maybe it has a little database about me. And so
Mm-hmm.
it just goes and searches for things that they're into, things that they've posted about, to try to
Yeah.
find common ground, and
Yeah.
tries to match it to what I've done and what I've
Yeah.
talked about. in order to give me a little report being like, hey, just pulled a report on Lee. You guys both have podcasts. You should probably mention that to him,
Yeah.
or whatever it might be. You're both into
Or even a
marketing.
couple layers
Yeah.
deeper, inside of that. And going beyond how people are using it right now, where, hey, I loved your episode with so and so on whatever. I bet you it was thrilling.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I get a lot of those outreach emails too. You don't want to lie. You can use the information in ways that, like, if you would have gone through and done it yourself, you would have done it that way. But you don't want to lie and say like, "Hey, I loved your episode," when one, you didn't, you send it automatically, so you don't even know the person. You never listened
Yeah,
to their podcast. You've never even seen their podcast. You definitely didn't listen to the episode, which means you couldn't love it, which is a lie. So every time I get a pitch email like that, I'm like, "Thanks for starting the relationship off on a lie." No, you're the person you represent can't be a guest on the podcast.
it's like this may be a really bad example, but so forgive me. But The Devil Wears Prada. So there's that one scene where Meryl Streep is at the dinner and she's standing there waiting for whoever I don't know the actors' names, but to tell them who's walking up to her and to say, okay, who is
Yeah,
this? And tell me the background real quick. And they had to remember all of that stuff. That's sort of how I'm thinking about it, is like arming me with as much information that as I can pull together so I can make a human connection more real and more intentional and not creepy. But one that it shows that I've done some work instead of, um, you know, doing what you were saying, like with where people are kind of basically lying. That's the way I envision it.
yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of shades of gray to that. I would totally do it for that. I'm at, because like you and I both show up to meetings, and you're like, wait, what am I meeting about? Who is this person again?
Yeah,
You're quickly going back through your
yeah,
emails. You're like, is
right.
there any clues in the calendar invite? Oh, maybe it was in the LinkedIn DMs. Oh, there it is. That's right. We talked 2 weeks ago about this thing, and they were like, hey, can you check out this thing? And now we're meeting.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
it would be really nice if 5 minutes before the meeting, your AI is like, hey, you're going to meet with so and so. This is what, remember, you talked about this. I know you're going to talk to them. By the way, based on your current goals, you should probably ask him about A, B, and C. So
right,
to see if there's a fit there,
right.
like whatever that is. Pretty soon we'll all have AI agents like that are
Yeah,
essentially high level executive assistants helping us
yeah,
business all the time.
yeah, exactly. And then the executive assistants become some new function in of themselves, because I think those are the kind of tasks that a human, it would take so much for a human to do, and they shouldn't be doing. Um, yeah, that's super interesting. Um, okay, this is cool. I'm excited to do this myself, actually, because I got some projects coming up that I think are in line with setting this up. So my computer is definitely not up to speed. I built this computer like 4 years ago, and it was great, but it needs I need to rebuild it. So timing is pretty good. Um, so if I rebuild the computer, you're saying, and I'll do the look on the specs, but like something like gigs of RAM. So it's obviously got to be really really fast. And then I'm downloading ChatGPT's GPT OSS 20B or the 120B.
120B's got more memory in it. That's why it's bigger. Um, It's like it remembers more general stuff, which means it hallucinates a little bit less. But again, it's 120B, as in like 120 gigabytes. It's not quite that how it works, but it's a massive
Sure,
file. So if
sure.
you don't have a large hard drive to store said thing, probably get the smaller one.
Well, yeah,
Just
I actually like your idea of having a separate computer though, so I might look at that route. I just to see about tying that in to map the data over. Um, but yeah, no, that's great. I think this is everyone who is looking into this at least, and maybe even having someone on their team start to dabble in it, I think is on the cutting edge of where we're at. Because and I do think keeping your subscription every month is a healthy thing, because
it
why
knows
not?
more.
You know?
Yeah. It's just different tools for different things. Some for private, some for general research or conversations, because again, you don't want to go and ask these self-hosted models questions about things you're curious about, because they're going to mess it up a lot. They're going to
Yeah,
make it up because they don't know. They don't have the knowledge base that these larger models have that are hosted in chatgpt.com.
yeah. Hey, thanks for coming back on. And Dan Sanchez, otherwise known as Dan Chez on LinkedIn. You probably already follow him, but you should go follow him. And I'll have to tell you, I enjoy getting your emails, but more so watching your YouTube videos. Um,
Hey,
yeah, I like what you're doing on YouTube because I think you have a really good, as you have on here, a good rapport with the audience through the camera, and that comes through on LinkedIn. I mean, on YouTube better than anywhere. I suspect you're following, assuming people know you're there, to grow pretty rapidly there because it's very approachable.
it's growing. It's funny. It's growing the same space, same speed on Spotify as it is on YouTube.
Hmm.
And you can watch my video on in all three. Apple, you can watch video. Spotify, video. YouTube, video. But naturally, YouTube's got more advantage in that it's more discoverable. Yet
Yeah.
Spotify and Apple have more advantage in that it's more consistent. People who subscribe to you on Apple specifically tend
Yes.
to tend to listen longer, be less clicky away. You know, they don't click away as fast.
Hmm.
Partly because there's no discoverability, but that ends up working for you there because they can't get distracted with somebody else's content while they're listening to yours,
That's
right? So
true. Yeah.
there's
The Apple
advantages to all three,
ecosystem.
which is why I'm on all three, and I try to keep it tight so that it makes sense on all three.
Yeah, I think you end up with like sort of three different cultures and types of users across those different platforms.
Yes.
Uh, well, we won't get into that, but that's an easy cliff to jump off of. But yeah, definitely, if you haven't seen him on YouTube, I would recommend that. But thanks again, Dan. This has been great, and I'll definitely have you back another time whenever you have more stuff percolating here, because I know AI is
Yeah.
just going to keep doing its thing.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Lee.